everyone. Welcome to Enhance Your Pregnancy Naturally. Today we are speaking with Heather Boone. She's a registered nurse, and we're very excited to talk to her. So let me tell you a bit about Heather. Heather is the co-founder of Transcendent Coaching and a certified master results coach. She is a wife, a mother, and a registered nurse. She's driven by her love for helping others, which started at a young age. Knowing she wanted a career that gave her the opportunity to help others on a daily basis led to nursing school. She's been a registered nurse for over 23 years in the pregnancy, labor, and delivery area and has helped more people than she ever imagined possible. Helping others as a registered nurse was fulfilling, but she lost sight of herself. She was living on autopilot and started listening to the discouraging words from her past. She was emotionally beaten down as a teenager and always told she wasn't smart enough or pretty enough, and that her ideas were just pipe dreams. She took a leap and made the decision to stop living in the past and learn how to overcome these feelings of doubt so she could live her best life. She's a master neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, a master timeline therapy practitioner, and an institute head of hypnotherapy. What took Heather years to find, she now offers her clients through elite programs designed to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And today we're going to talk to Heather about debunking all those pregnancy myths surrounding diet and exercise. Heather, I'm super excited to talk to you today. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I cannot wait to blow up some of these myths for these ladies. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and joining us.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun. And I know everybody gets advice from all over the place when they're pregnant about what they should do and shouldn't do. And some of it is just, you know, kind of in the past and people didn't know. So let's break down those myths and get people on the right healthy path to their perfect pregnancy, or as perfect as possible, because pregnancy is very unpredictable. But anyways, okay, so myth number one, you should not exercise during pregnancy.
That is totally false. There are some exercises that you should not do. Heavy lifting, anything that, you know, increases your heart rate so that the blood is being shunted away from the placenta. My advice is typically keep your heart rate above or less than 150. And if you notice that it's up, then just kind of back off in intensity. Daily moderate exercise for 20 to 30 minutes a day actually gives you a boost in energy. It can help with nausea for those of you who are feeling nausea every day. And it can kind of get you through that slump of the afternoon or the evening when you really want to do something and just want to go to bed at the same time.
Right. Yes, that fatigue is very intense during pregnancy. Great. So if I'm a CrossFitter and I'm used to doing CrossFit, can I keep doing that?
So we typically say yes, and with some modifications. A lot of the CrossFit coaches do have some knowledge surrounding pregnancy and what should be avoided. Obviously, as the pregnancy grows, some of the lifting is a little more challenging and could even be harmful in that your belly's in the way of the bar.
Right. So you have to be extra cautious there, yes.
Correct. And that center of gravity can kind of be tricky at some point too. So just being cognizant, right? If you've been doing it, I've had plenty of women who continue the CrossFit throughout their pregnancy with extreme modifications in regards to the jumping and the heart rate and the high intensity stuff to keep that blood flow going to the pregnancy where it needs to be.
Okay, great. So we can still exercise, and if we're used to exercising sort of on that high intensity level, we don't have to stop doing that, but we just got to bring that intensity down to more of like a moderate intensity and not get up to that high intensity. I remember that you also had said something about, you know, when you not to hold your breath and like do that kind of pushing.
Correct.
Some people do during exercise. So make sure you're always having a continuous flow of breath as well.
Yes, continuous breathing, lots of stretching, lots of hydration.
All right, so keep exercising. And if you're not exercising, start with something small like walking daily, or I know you also recommend yoga, prenatal yoga or prenatal
Yep.
Pilates, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yep.
Myth number 2, eat lots more because you're eating for 2.
No, you're really not. You need a few hundred extra calories, particularly in the the second and the third trimester. First trimester, I always joke and say it's survival of the fittest, especially with the nausea. Most women tend to eat what they can when they can. Sometimes it's purely carb ridden in the first trimester, and that's okay. You need the calories, and what the baby needs, the baby will actually take from you. So, second and third trimester, there's some more growing and whatnot going on as far as size of the baby. So that's where those extra calories come into play. And then also with breastfeeding, you do need about, 250 extra calories a day. And you're not eating for 2. That's, I've heard that so many times. Oh, here, you're eating for 2. No, I'm really not. I'm eating for myself and a little bit more.
Yes, right. Because even, at birth, most babies are somewhere at full term between like 6 and 10 pounds maximally, really. So, imagine yourself plus 10 pounds. You don't need that much more food to fulfill that extra 10 pounds in your body.
Correct.
Okay, wonderful. So that's a good one. And we are talking to a naturopath who is going to discuss how to make sure mom has enough of the stuff inside her. She needs vitamins, minerals, and all that stuff, so that when the baby takes what it needs from mom, she gets full.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So let's go on to myth number 3. Having sex during pregnancy is dangerous.
While there are some instances in pregnancy where it can be dangerous, those are rare, and your physician would tell you that it was unsafe at that point. An example would be a placenta previa, which is where the placenta actually covers the opening of the cervix. So there's absolutely nothing allowed in the vagina until delivery when that occurs. However, in a normal, healthy pregnancy, absolutely, sex is totally fine. You may find that you have to experiment a little bit because things feel differently. So to find something that's comfortable may be a little tricky until you find, a position or, whatever that works for you with all of the changes going on with your body.
Right, but it's not dangerous to the baby or the mom. And I know some men feel a little bit uncomfortable because they're worried that they are actually poking at the baby, but that is generally not the case.
No, I mean, if they are poking anything, it would be the cervix, and the baby is in the uterus at the other end of the cervix.
Right.
So if you can get them to visualize that, then maybe you'll have some luck.
Right. Just take the anxiety away. I know my husband had to sort of mentally get over that little bit as well. Okay, so myth number 4, you cannot color your hair or get your nails done during pregnancy.
That is also false. While I do typically recommend for hair dyes that you wait until after the first trimester, there are some people who have done some light stuff, if you do the ombre just at the ends or whatnot. The concern could be that, chemicals getting into the scalp, and nobody wants to be a guinea pig to find out what the repercussions could be if we're doing that. So most women, just after reading on the internet, by the time they get to me, they just opt to wait until after the first trimester. And then it's totally fine.
And why is that first trimester so important to keep chemically free?
That is when the fetus is developing. There's tons and tons of cell division. All of the organs are developing, the brain, the heart. the limbs, they start to resemble tiny humans.
Okay.
So
And
very important to keep.
right. So that's like sort of happening in the first 3 months of the pregnancy. And then once the baby is sort of fully formed, then it's really spending the next second and third trimester, like growing bigger,
Yes.
as opposed to forming these vital things that keep us alive and functioning and human.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Growing, and the nervous systems as they grow mature as well. So, and the nervous system is in place by the time that second trimester starts. So the foundation is laid. It's just, as you said, it's just that continuation of growth.
Okay, perfect. So if we're going to be fully clean and clear, that first trimester is the most important time to do that.
Correct. Okay. And your nails is totally fine. Sometimes you ladies know that the fumes are what gets you. So if the fumes get you and you can't stomach the fumes, and it's not a salon that there's a lot of air able to be moved, or windows or doors be opened, then just for your nausea's sake, it may be best to forgo the nails until that nausea resolves.
Yeah, and maybe I guess hair too, that the dye has smells as well. So if the smells are aggravating, then don't do what aggravates you.
Yes.
Okay, myth number 5. You should eliminate caffeine from your life.
No, and please don't. Most people who cold turkey caffeine get rebound headaches, which can be challenging to get to go away. We recommend, 8 to 10 ounces of coffee a day is fine, which is around 300 milligrams of caffeine. Totally fine. And the reason for the limitation on the caffeine is we don't know the repercussions, or if there are any repercussions of drinking a whole pot of coffee a day, right? And caffeine is also a natural diuretic. So staying hydrated becomes a challenge if you're drinking too much caffeine.
Okay, so lower the amount of coffee, but you don't have to fully eliminate it. I know a lot of women sort of shift over to decaffeinated coffee. Is there anything we need to consider when we're drinking decaf?
So decaffeinated coffee, while it's decaffeinated, still has some caffeine in it. So I would just be cognizant of the amount of caffeine. It usually will give you on the bag or the container, the amount of caffeine per 8 ounces. So I would just, be cognizant. And if it's low enough, then have 2 cups of coffee a day. Just be aware that there is still generally some kind of caffeine in there.
Right. And I guess because we're also concerned with hydration, make sure that if you're having a cup of coffee, maybe balance that with a cup of water after.
Yeah. And I actually even recommend, especially with the high heats that, happen during the summer, adding in something with electrolytes. It could even just be electrolyte enhanced water. It seems to help keep headaches at bay as well. Some of my patients have told me. So that's, really key with hydration is, making sure that you're retaining those electrolytes that you need to stay balanced.
Right. Okay. So that's a good thing to note. And if you're not into the Gatorades and that kind of stuff, then you can also, there's trace elements out there, which is like drops you can add to your water. And there's also even just adding a couple of twists of your Himalayan sea salt adds a lot of electrolytes, and you don't need to salt your water so it tastes salty, but just enough that you get some of those electrolytes replaced.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Myth number 6, hot tubs and steam rooms are okay during pregnancy.
No, please avoid them. The high heat, because you are immersing your body in those high heats, it actually raises your core body temperature, which can be detrimental to a pregnancy. If you're, a pool is fine. And if some people have just put their feet in a hot tub, that's fine. I would say, if you're putting your feet in the hot tub just to kind of get the feel and not be the whole way in, just be cognizant if you start feeling really warm to, get out sooner than you normally would.
Okay, cool. And like if I wanted to have a bath at home, is
Mhm.
there like a temperature that's a safe temperature for me to be in for a longer period of time? Because I'm sore
Yeah,
and
so
achy and I want to relax.
yeah, it's usually more of like a lukewarm. It's not a hot, again, along the lines of raising your core body temperature. You can stand in a shower for 30 minutes or until the water runs cold, if that's what you want, because it is just raising the temperature of your skin. It's not raising your actual core temperature.
Okay, so hot showers and bath no hotter than regular body temperature.
Probably, yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
that would be a good rule.
great. Yeah, I needed my baths for sure. Okay, myth number 7. You can eat any meat that you like.
No, there are some things or some restrictions, if you will, that actually should be paid attention to when you're pregnant.
Okay.
If you're doing red meat like beef, it should be well done. And I know for some that's not an option. If it's kind of at that point got to be your judgment. The recommendation is well done. And if that's not something that you can do and you want a steak during your pregnancy, then you need to be cognizant of where it's coming from. Is it coming from a supermarket where it could have been sitting in the case for a week? Is it coming from a butcher shop where they cut their meat every day or, potentially even every other day? There's risk for, bacterial infections. And because we are growing a human, our immune system as a mom is not as strong as it would be outside of pregnancy. So that's where that recommendation comes in, because if we would get a bacteria, we may not be able to fight it off as easily as if we were not pregnant.
Right. Yeah, because the baby that we make, its DNA is different from mom's. So the immune system does have to shut off, or it would, attack, because that's what the immune system is designed to find, foreign entities. And actually a baby is really a foreign entity.
It's a foreign object.
Yes. So we want to make sure that our immune system doesn't attack the baby so that it can grow and stay in our bodies. Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying if we can find meat that we know was freshly cut that day or the day before, and we're eating it that day, then we could maybe have a slightly lower temperature than well done for our meat, but we should really make sure we cook off all the bacteria, just because our immune systems are lowered to protect baby.
Correct. I still wouldn't do a rare steak. Medium well is probably the lowest I would go. And again, if that's not okay, then maybe you just don't have steak for the pregnancy, and that's your very first meal after you deliver. That's that's your prize after delivery is your rare steak.
Yeah, maybe go for the ground beef or something instead, where it's getting cooked all the way through during the pregnancy to get your beef fix. Okay. So there's a few other foods in there that we typically hear to avoid, and sushi is one of them. I know that the sushi is from the raw fish, so I'm assuming that's kind of along the same lines of those steaks. We don't know when that fish was caught, when it was cut, how long it's been exposed to air, that kind of thing. And we want to make sure we're not getting bacteria in our bodies.
Correct.
The other thing I heard a lot was soft cheeses. What's that about?
So soft cheeses, again, because a lot of them are made with a specific mold, if you will. It all ties into the bacteria piece. I've had women who ask, what if it's pasteurized? Okay. I would still do it in moderation. It's one of those things that I don't know that anybody's going to volunteer to be a guinea pig to study to see if I eat brie every day during my pregnancy, even if it's pasteurized, is everything okay?
Right.
So, make sure it's hot, make sure it's pasteurized, and then in moderation, in theory is probably fine. I feel like most cheeses, even, especially in, North America, are pasteurized. So just being cognizant of those.
Right. And pasteurization means that they've at some point heated the cheese to a
Yes,
higher level to kill off bacteria before they put it together.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
wonderful. All right. Next myth. An epidural is going to delay or slow down my labor.
No, not no. So epidurals, most practitioners will, recommend patients wait until they are in active labor to get their epidurals. And epidurals, I have seen patients get an epidural and deliver within an hour. Um, it's kind of, it's kind of dependent on your body and the labor curve that it's on. Sometimes it does take a little bit longer. And, sometimes they'll have to give you a little bit of Pitocin, which is that hormone that our body creates to make labor happen. Just to kind of, I always say we're coaxing the uterus to do what it needs to do to have this baby.
Okay.
Um,
And I guess moms too, like being in pain is stressful. And so that might, tighten things up even more and make it harder to open up and relax, which is what we need to do. So sometimes the epidural might do the opposite of slow down, which is even speed things up because mom can actually relax better.
yeah, and sometimes it truly is that. It takes about 20 minutes for the epidural to set up. And I've had people who, have been laboring for hours with nothing because they really want to go natural. And they're finally like, okay, I'm done. Give me the epidural. I just can't anymore. And, you lay them down and you're getting them situated after the epidural. And they're like, I think I need to push. So, like you said, even though we're like, well, it's my uterus and it's my cervix and I don't have control, you don't consciously have control, but pain tenses your entire body, even those places, if you will, that we don't think of or wouldn't think that we had control over. So allowing the body to relax allows labor and the body to, allows labor to occur and the body to naturally do what it was designed to do.
Great. And the other myth surrounding epidurals that I've heard is that moms are worried that the baby might come out a little sluggish or like it's had some of the drug of choice, and they're worried about that. They would rather endure the pain than drug their baby on the way out. So debunk that myth because I know it's not true.
Yeah, no, it is totally not true. The epidural medication goes into mom's epidural space in her spinal column. And while it numbs it because of where it is, it numbs, that's how the numbing factor works. It does not cross the placenta. So not crossing the placenta means that the baby does not get it. There are some IV medications that are sometimes given for pain in labor. And if they're given too close to delivery, then those babies can come out a little bit sluggish, and not being vigorous and crying like we would expect a newborn to be.
Okay, so it would be actually a benefit to choose if you need some kind of pain relief to choose the epidural over using the IV, like a morphine type drug in the IV. Okay, good to know. Okay, myth number 9: your mood does not affect your baby.
That is totally false. There have actually been studies done that show that mom's mood during pregnancy actually plays a huge role in the mood of the baby as the child grows after delivery. and it's funny, you look around and you see all these moms that are super happy, and then you see their toddlers like later, and they're like these happy-go-lucky kids. And then, I know I personally have seen moms that are just mad and angry all the time, and always talking negative, and the kid's colicky, the baby wouldn't breastfeed, the baby doesn't sleep. It's like all of these things snowball, and then as they get to be a toddler, they're exploring like toddlers do. Um, and they get mad over everything. Like, I've seen toddlers throw themselves on the floor in the office. um, and so, being aware of your emotions during pregnancy is a huge key to a good, healthy mental start for the baby.
Okay, so I am a high-powered attorney, and I work 15-hour days, and I'm pregnant, and I'm gonna work through my pregnancy, and I've got court cases, and I've got this, and I've got a naggy mother-in-law, and an invasive mother, and there's a lot of stress in my life. What can I do? Because I'm aware that my stress may affect how my baby comes out, like their actual mood or whatever when they come out. How do I help myself sort of de-stress? What are some things that you would recommend for de-stressing?
Sometimes something as simple as just sitting in nature with no electronics, like electronics left in the house, in the car, whatever. Sitting in nature. There are a slew of YouTube videos, if you just like, it doesn't even have to be the video piece, just the meditations for, relaxation and dispelling negative energy. There are also coaches out there. One of the things I actually do is I actually work with women to let go of negative emotions, and move forward. And doing that actually wipes out the negative emotions for the baby before the baby's ever born, which is so stinking cool, right? um yeah, I mean, who would have thought, changing mom's mind during pregnancy actually changes some things for the fetus as well.
Amazing. Okay, so we can meditate. We can, I guess, if you recommend going out in nature, maybe you combine that. You can sit, or you could maybe do that walk that you want to do.
Yeah.
Or I know, like doing a calm yoga class or a stretch class or something that sort of just brings your heart rate down and lets you forget about your stresses. And I'm sure
Yeah.
something else that would be a good idea is, if you are in some kind of job that's very hectic, delegate as much as you can, get help when you
Absolutely.
need it, and because you want to keep the state of your body as relaxed as possible. I mean, obviously life happens and stresses happen, and we move and people die, and there's lots of stuff in this world that goes on that's kind of out of our control. But to really focus on calming ourselves and doing that will be super helpful to the baby, and then probably we'll have an easier time with that baby, right?
Yes, for sure. And sometimes even just taking a step away from whatever the situation is. And, you notice that negative energy coming in, and you take a step back and you acknowledge it, and you're like, okay, great. Now you need to go. And just being aware is probably one of the biggest keys to dispelling it.
Okay. All right. And along those lines of mood and stuff, we're going to move on to myth number 10. And that is, I should not take any medication during pregnancy because it might affect my baby.
Oh, that's always a double-edged sword, right? So, there are regulations on medications, and they all have categories in pregnancy. And those categories are based on the number of studies that have been done. So category A is typically considered your safest. So that's like your Tylenol, your Claritin, plain Claritin. plain Zyrtec, Tums, Pepcid, those kinds of things. As you move down the line, C's, it kind of depends on the situation. There are some mood medications such as Zoloft that are a category C. And sometimes mom has already been on those by the time she's pregnant. So we continue those because it's actually more beneficial to continue that medication than to stop that medication and totally mess with mom's mood during pregnancy.
Okay, and do sometimes people like who are on mood type for depression or even anxiety and those kinds of things, should they be working with their doctor, or would it be a good idea to work with the doctor to maybe lower doses of that kind of medications, or should we just stick to it and make sure our mood is completely stable?
Yeah, so it should be monitored closely by their physician. They're usually working with a therapist if they're on a mood stabilizer medication. So continued work with the two of those closely. Some women do opt to decrease that medication. And as long as it's under the direction of a physician, that's fine. Please, please, please do not mess with your mood stabilizer medication dosages without a physician's input.
Right. Yeah, because there's withdrawal symptoms, and some medications are fairly easy to come off of, and some are much harder. So you have to make sure that if you're on one of those that are tougher and your system needs time to sort of detox as you're lowering, then make sure, that you're under somebody's care, so that you don't want to go too far too fast. And you also don't want to put yourself in crisis. If you're growing a baby, your mental health is just as important as growing that baby.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, I had one more question, but I think actually we actually went through that.
Awesome.
Okay, so those are all the sort of myths that we came up with here. So what I wanted to ask you about is, I know that some women are wondering with doing some coaching and things like that, if it's a good time during pregnancy to do that. And I know you've recently had really a great breakthrough with one of your clients during pregnancy, and the breakthrough sort of happened, and then she witnessed a whole change in her family dynamics after the baby was born. So tell us about her.
Yes, so it was so cool. She and I have actually been friends now for 6 years, and I have been with her through all 3 of her pregnancies. And she saw that I was doing some coaching and came to me and said, "Hey, what is this? We need to talk." So we talked, and she said, "Okay, I want to do it. I need to do it. Something has to change." I was like, "Okay." So around 30 weeks, so just into the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, we got together and we did a mini breakthrough to let go of the negative emotions that she has been holding on to for years. She's in her mid-30s. And so it's just kind of, from childhood all up through now, snowball effects, bad relationships, not great relationships with parents, those kinds of things. So we did the breakthrough, she delivered, and I called her to check on her and I said, "Hey, Kim, how are you?" And she said, "I'm great. What's going on?" I said, "I was just calling to check and see what, how you're feeling and everything." And she was like, "Man, this time is so different." And I was like, "Different how?" And she said, "Well, her husband was cooking dinner. He'd been helping with the 2 older kids. After he cooked dinner, he was going to take the older 2 kids to the oldest, to their son's baseball game and leave her at home with the baby." I said, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I don't know what changed. Like, this is so different than the last time." So just as a caveat, she had postpartum depression with both of her first pregnancies after she delivered. And this time she was like, "I feel great. But I don't know what's changed." And I said, "How about that work we did a few weeks ago?" And she said, "What?" And I said, "Didn't you do some work a few weeks ago? Like, you've been continuing to do some things, there was some tasking." And she was like, holy shit, that's what changed. It's totally different. And so it changed the dynamics. She was more appreciative of what her husband was doing to help instead of nagging for the other things that he wasn't doing. She was acknowledging where she was and giving herself grace, as a new mom with two older children. She was allowing herself grace this time to not be the one to have to do everything, and be appreciative of the help that she was getting. So it was so cool to see her at her 6-week checkup in the office, because she was still totally in awe at the difference that it made. And it was so very cool to see because, again, this is now delivery number 3 with her. And I know how the other 2 went. And this one has been totally different. And it's so cool to see how shifting one person, is going to make a huge difference for the baby, right? However, it's also shifted some little but vital things in her marriage and in her household.
Well, that's amazing. So if some of our listeners, viewers are interested in learning more about what you do outside of your nursing career, how can we find you?
So our business website is transcendentcoachingllc.com. And you can book a call on the website. There's a about us section, there's program information there. And then we can book a call and chat.
Wonderful. Well, I hope some people take advantage of that because it sounds like having a breakthrough during pregnancy would be super helpful. And it's not just helpful for mom and how she feels, but for baby and how they come out feeling, and can also just sort of trickle out to the family and family dynamics and make life easier in general, which we could all use an easier life, right?
Right. A little bit of guidance to make things a little bit easier. There's still going to be bumps in the road. And there are ways to navigate through them a little bit better, a little more effectively, so that you don't feel, so that you feel human, and realize that you're human and give yourself some grace.
Yeah, grace is a very important thing, especially self-giving for sure. Hey,
yes,
well,
yes.
I thought this was super entertaining and super informative, and I'm very, very happy and thankful that you joined us on this summit. And I hope to speak to you again soon. Have a wonderful day, Heather.
Thank you so much, Jordanna, for the invitation again. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking to some of you women, and see how I can guide you to, to a new for postpartum, right? Or if this is your first baby, just guiding you to an amazing postpartum experience.
Wonderful.